You're a prisoner, not in a cell, in your own mind. Every decision you make is filtered through a question. What will they think of me? Or will my decision be accepted? Every word you say is calculated to avoid judgment. Every action you take is planned to gain approval, and it is destroying you. Slowly, silently, completely. You're not living your life. You're playing a character for an audience that doesn't even care. But there's a way out, a psychological framework that breaks the chains of external validation and gives you something most people never experience. True mental freedom. That is, stop caring what they think, and it will set you free. Chapter 1. The approval trap is killing your potential. You're not tired because you work too hard. You're tired because you waste energy trying to please people who don't matter. Every moment you spend seeking approval from others is a moment stolen from building your own life. The math is brutal. If you spend 30% of your mental energy wondering what people think, you have 30% less for execution, growth, and achievement. That's not philosophy. That's arithmetic. The approval trap isn't harmless. It's a parasite. It feeds on your attention. It drains your confidence. It leaves you performing instead of producing. And the worst part is, it feels like safety while it kills your potential. That's the key. Approval feels safe. But it's not safety, it's surrender. The mechanics of the trap. Here's how it works. You seek validation. You get a small hit of approval. You feel relief. Then you need more, and more, and more. That's not connection. That's addiction. Approval works like a drug. Each hit gives temporary comfort, but the tolerance rises. Soon, silence feels like rejection. Neutrality feels like criticism. And the absence of validation feels like failure. You've built your emotional system on borrowed opinions. That means your confidence isn't real, it's leased. And every time someone disapproves, your lease gets revoked. That's the trap. You become a slave to perception. You build a personality that maximizes applause, not authenticity. You trade truth for approval. You trade growth for safety. You trade yourself for their comfort. And every trade weakens you. The invisible cost. Approval seeking has an interest rate. It compounds. Every decision you adjust to earn validation compounds into years of lost authenticity. Think about it. You don't speak your truth because you might offend. You don't take the risk because you might fail publicly. You don't set the boundary because you might lose favor. So you live a smaller version of your life, not because you lack ability, but because you fear judgment. That's how approval kills potential. Not through one big failure, but through a lifetime of tiny surrenders. You have a choice. You can live for approval, or you can live for results. But you can't do both. Approval demands conformity. Results demand courage. Pick one. That's the key. You can't be exceptional and approved at the same time. The reality of other people's opinions. Here's the truth nobody tells you. The people whose approval you're chasing aren't even paying attention. You think they're judging your every move. They're not. They're judging their own. They're in their own approval trap, performing for their own imaginary audience. They don't have time to care about yours. That's the irony. You're exhausting yourself trying to impress people who are too distracted trying to impress others. Everyone's performing. No one's watching. You've built a prison for an audience that doesn't exist. You're rehearsing for a play no one's attending. And every performance keeps you from the real work, becoming who you actually are. That's the trap's genius. It doesn't destroy you dramatically. It dissolves you slowly. You fade into other people's expectations until there's nothing left to recognize. You stop being a person. You become a projection. The psychology of approval addiction. The reason approval feels so powerful is because it triggers ancient wiring. For thousands of years, rejection from the tribe meant death. No tribe meant no protection, no food, no chance of survival. So your brain evolved to equate disapproval with danger. But that wiring is outdated. You're not living in a prehistoric camp. You're living in a world where rejection doesn't kill you, it clarifies you. Your brain hasn't caught up. It still thinks every frown is fatal. Every silence is threat. Every disagreement is danger. That's the illusion you must destroy. Because every time you obey that fear, you reinforce the false equation. Disapproval equals death. That's not intelligence. That's conditioning. And conditioning can be reprogrammed. You have a choice. Stop obeying fear disguised as wisdom. Stop treating rejection like death. Stop mistaking discomfort for danger. That's the key. It's not about eliminating fear. It's about disobeying it. The performance you didn't notice. Most people don't even know they're performing. It starts small. A small edit here. A tone adjustment there. A smile when you don't feel it. A yes when you mean no. Over time, those micro adjustments become your default. You forget who you were before the performance. You can't tell where the act ends and the truth begins. You've built an entire identity out of predictions. Predicting what others will think. Predicting what will be liked. Predicting what will be safe. That's not living. That's simulation. And here's the brutal truth. Every time you hide who you are, you train the world to love a version of you that doesn't exist. Then you wonder why the love doesn't feel real. It's not real. It's for the mask, not the person. That's why people who live for approval always feel hollow. They win the applause, but lose themselves. You don't need their permission to stop performing. You just need the courage to be misunderstood. The misunderstanding test. You want freedom? Here's the test. Can you be misunderstood without breaking? Can you be criticized without collapsing? Can you be judged without conforming? If you can, you're free. If you can't, you're still in the cage. Freedom begins the moment you stop editing yourself for acceptance. That's not rebellion. That's reclamation. Rebellion is reaction. Reclamation is ownership. You're not rebelling against their opinions. You're reclaiming your energy. That's the key. Approval costs energy. Authenticity returns it. The more you live for their judgment, the less you have for your mission. The less you care what they think, the more mental horsepower you reclaim. Imagine what happens when all the energy you waste on approval is redirected into execution. Focus, discipline, creation. That's the transformation waiting for you. The discipline of self-approval. Stop waiting for applause. Start giving yourself permission. The only opinion that matters is the one you live with 24 hours a day, your own. But self-approval isn't built through affirmations. It's built through action. You don't tell yourself you're worthy, you prove it. You don't tell yourself you're capable, you demonstrate it. You don't tell yourself you're enough. You act like it until it's undeniable. That's the discipline. Self-approval is earned through evidence, not emotion. You want confidence? Keep the promises you make to yourself. You want peace? Stop negotiating your values for validation. You want respect? Stop begging for it. Build it. You have a choice every day, approval or authenticity. Choose authenticity until approval becomes irrelevant. Transition. The approval trap feeds on ignorance. Once you see it, it loses its power. Once you name it, you can escape it. Once you stop performing, you start living. You just seen how the approval trap kills potential. Now we go deeper. Why do you care so much in the first place? Where does this need to please come from? And how can you rewire it permanently? Chapter 2. Why you care so much and why it's not your fault. You're not weak for caring what people think. You're human. But here's the truth. Just because something is natural doesn't mean it's useful. Your need for approval isn't a flaw. It's a survival mechanism that's become obsolete. It kept your ancestors alive, but it's killing your potential now. That's the key. It's not about shame. It's about wiring. And wiring can be rewritten. The evolutionary root of approval. For 99% of human history, approval wasn't optional. It was survival. Thousands of years ago, your ancestors lived in small tribes. To be rejected was to die. No tribe meant no food, no protection, no chance. So your brain evolved one mission: be accepted, stay in the group, avoid rejection at all costs. That's why your nervous system still reacts to social disapproval like physical threat. That's why criticism spikes your heart rate. That's why silence feels like danger. The same brain that once feared predators now fears unfollows. The same instincts that once avoided exile now avoid judgment. You're running ancient software on modern hardware. It's time to upgrade the operating system. That's the key. You can't fight biology, but you can reprogram behavior. The modern mismatch. Today, rejection isn't fatal, but your body doesn't know that. You don't die when someone disapproves of you. You just feel like you might. You don't lose resources when a stranger criticizes you. You just feel the same panic your ancestors felt around the campfire. That mismatch between ancient threat and modern life is why approval feels addictive. Your brain treats likes as safety signals. It treats disapproval as threat. The system that once kept you alive now keeps you enslaved. The primitive brain wants comfort, connection, and approval. The higher brain wants freedom, mastery, and truth. Those two parts are at war. Every time you choose approval over authenticity, the primitive brain wins. Every time you choose truth over validation, the higher brain wins. That's the war you fight daily. It's invisible, but it's real. You're not fighting other people's opinions. You're fighting your own biology. Childhood, the origin of conditioning. Your approval addiction didn't start on social media. It started in childhood. From your earliest memories, approval was the currency of love. You were rewarded when you behaved. You were punished when you didn't. You learned the formula: perform correctly, receive affection. Parents didn't mean to program you this way, but repetition is power. 10,000 small corrections taught your brain the same lesson. Approval equals safety. Disapproval equals pain. So you learn to read faces faster than books. You learn to sense tone before words. You learn to adjust behavior instantly to avoid conflict. That's not weakness. That's adaptation. But here's the problem. What kept you safe as a child now keeps you small as an adult. You're still scanning the room for approval when you should be scanning for opportunity. You're still reading faces when you should be reading strategy. You're still adapting for acceptance when you should be acting for achievement. That's the switch that must flip. You can't grow while staying safe. You can't evolve while staying approved. The reinforcement loop. Every approval hit strengthens the neural pathway. Every disapproval sting reinforces the fear. This is the reinforcement loop that keeps you stuck. It's pure neuroscience. You get approval, you release dopamine. You lose approval, you trigger cortisol. Your brain literally rewards you for compliance and punishes you for authenticity. That's why change feels wrong at first. You're breaking a chemical habit, not just a mental one. The same way addicts crave their next hit. You crave reassurance. You crave permission. You crave acceptance. That's why you overexplain. That's why you hesitate before acting. That's why you edit your truth to fit expectations. It's not personality. It's programming. And programming can be rewritten through exposure and repetition. That's the key. You're not broken, you're trained. And training can be reversed. Rewiring the system. You can't think your way out of approval addiction. You have to recondition your nervous system. That means deliberate exposure to disapproval. Controlled doses of rejection. Strategic practice in being misunderstood. Here's the training. Do small things that trigger the fear and survive them. Speak an unpopular truth in a meeting. Post something you believe without checking reactions. Say no without apology. Let silence exist after a disagreement. Each time you survive disapproval, your brain learns the truth. It's not fatal. That's how you rewire safety. The goal isn't to stop caring overnight. The goal is to prove to your system that disapproval is survivable. Do it enough times and the fear shrinks. Do it for long enough and the need dissolves. You don't beat approval addiction by hiding from judgment. You beat it by walking straight into it until it loses power. That's the key. Discomfort is the cure. Avoidance is the disease. The myth of universal approval. You want everyone to like you. But that goal is mathematically impossible. You can't stand in one place without someone disapproving. Every belief creates opposition. Every success triggers envy. Every truth offends someone. Even perfection gets criticized because it reminds others of their mediocrity. The moment you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you start being respected by someone. And more importantly, you start respecting yourself. You have a choice. You can keep chasing the illusion of universal approval, or you can build the reality of internal respect. That's the key. It's not about being liked. It's about being aligned. The power of reframing. When you feel the sting of disapproval, don't interpret it as failure. Interpret it as progress. Every time someone disapproves of your authentic self, you've filtered out the wrong audience. Every time someone judges your truth, you've clarified your tribe. Disapproval isn't rejection, it's direction. It's information showing you where not to waste energy. That's how warriors of the mind operate. They don't seek universal approval. They seek selective alignment. They don't chase popularity. They pursue precision. When you stop needing validation, you become impossible to manipulate. When you stop chasing approval, you become magnetic to those who value truth. That's how freedom begins, not by convincing everyone, but by no longer needing to. The turning point. Awareness without action is nothing. Now that you know why you care, you have to decide what to do about it. You can't erase your biology, but you can override it with discipline. That starts with this daily practice. Do one thing every day that risks disapproval. Every single day. Start small. Speak your truth once. Disagree once. Say no once. One act of honesty per day builds the muscle of freedom. After 30 days, discomfort becomes familiar. After 60, fear loses volume. After 90, approval no longer controls you. That's the path. Not affirmation. Action. You don't need permission to stop caring. You just need proof that you'll survive it. And the only way to get that proof is to live it. Transition. You've learned the truth. Your approval seeking isn't weakness, it's wiring. It's ancient programming running on outdated logic. And you now know the way to rewire it. Exposure, repetition, and choice. But awareness of the problem isn't enough. You must now filter who actually deserves your attention. Not every opinion is equal. Not every critic is credible. Next, we'll separate the voices that matter from the noise that doesn't. You'll learn who earns the right to influence your path and who never did. Chapter 3. The 3 types of people whose opinions matter. Here's the truth. Most opinions about you are noise. Useless, empty noise. They don't move your life forward. They don't pay your bills. They don't bear your consequences. Yet you treat them like law. That's the trap. You give power to people who have earned none. You adjust your direction to satisfy voices that vanish tomorrow. You hand the steering wheel of your life to people who don't even know where you're going. You have a choice. You can keep collecting opinions like trophies, or you can start filtering them like a professional. That's the key. The most disciplined minds don't ignore every opinion. They just know which ones count. The 99% rule. 99% of opinions about you are irrelevant. They're not based on truth. They're based on projection. People see you through the lens of their own fears, insecurities, and limits. Their criticism isn't about you. It's about their reflection. Someone who gave up on their dream will call your ambition unrealistic. Someone who hates their job will call your risk irresponsible. Someone who fears rejection will call your confidence arrogance. They're not describing you. They're describing themselves. That's the 99% rule. 99% of feedback, judgment, and opinion is projection. It's information about them, not about you. The discipline is simple. Stop absorbing projection as truth. Start filtering opinions through credibility. Filter 1. Authority over resources. The first category of people whose opinions matter are those who control the resources relevant to your goals. If someone signs your paycheck, funds your company, or manages your contract, their opinion can directly impact outcomes. That means it deserves strategic attention, but only in that specific domain. Your boss's opinion about your work performance might matter. Their opinion about your relationship or hobbies does not. Your client's opinion about your delivery matters. Their opinion about your personality doesn't. You respect their authority within their lane, but you never give them authority outside of it. That's the key. Respect context. Don't confuse situational authority with universal authority. Most people surrender their freedom because they let professional feedback bleed into personal validation. Don't. Their approval might affect your income, but it should never define your identity. Listen strategically, not emotionally. Filter 2. Proven expertise. The second category is people who have done what you're trying to do and done it well. That means results, not talk. Track record, not theory. Execution, not commentary. Everyone has an opinion. Almost no one has experience. You want fitness advice? Ask the person who trains daily, not the one who complains weekly. You want business feedback? Ask someone who's built something, not someone who scrolls something. You want life advice? Ask someone living a life you'd actually trade for. That's the filter. If you wouldn't trade places with them, don't take advice from them. You don't need to be arrogant. You just need to be selective. Because unfiltered advice is intellectual junk food. Tastes comforting, destroys clarity. Seek counsel from competence, not comfort. The people who challenge you with evidence, not emotion. The ones who show proof, not opinion. That's the key. Advice without evidence is noise. Advice backed by execution is strategy. Filter 3. Genuine love and loyalty. The third category is rare. People who love you unconditionally and have proven they want your success. Not everyone in your circle qualifies. Many love you for who you were, not who you're becoming. They loved your comfort, not your growth. They loved your compliance, not your evolution. You'll know the difference. Real love doesn't guilt you for changing. Real love celebrates your expansion even when it challenges their comfort. The people who belong in this category are those who tell you the hard truth without wanting to hurt you. They don't flatter. They don't manipulate. They correct you privately and protect you publicly. That's earned credibility. That's loyalty. That's love that deserves your ear. But even here, caution. Loving you doesn't make them right. You listen, but you don't obey. You consider, but you decide. You thank them, but you think for yourself. That's the key. Gratitude without submission. Respect without surrender. The noise of the crowd. Everyone else? Noise. Spectators in the cheap seats. The crowd always has opinions. They always will. Because judging is easier than building. Criticizing is easier than creating. The crowd needs you to care what they think, because if you didn't, they'd lose power. Their only weapon is your attention. Take that away, and they disappear. That's how you win. Not by silencing the noise, but by becoming immune to it. You have to stop reacting to every opinion like it's a command. Most people don't even know what they think. They copy other opinions. They echo whatever's trending. And you're bending your life to match their confusion. That's insanity. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You don't even need their understanding. You need clarity. You need purpose. You need peace. That's built through filtering, not performing. The feedback audit. Here's the exercise. Create a list of everyone whose opinion you've allowed to affect you this month. Write them down. Coworkers, family, friends, strangers online. Now, test each name through the 3 filters. Do they control resources relevant to your goals? Have they proven expertise in the area they're judging? Have they shown unconditional love and loyalty toward your success? If the answer is no to all 3, their opinion doesn't matter at all. Delete it. Mentally, emotionally, completely. That's the filter system of high performers. They don't eliminate feedback, they elevate it. They reduce the noise until only the signal remains. The result? Peace, clarity, power. When you filter opinions, you stop being reactive. When you stop being reactive, you become strategic. And strategy always beats noise. That's the key. You're not being rude, you're being responsible. The consequence of unfiltered opinions, letting unqualified opinions shape your behavior, is like letting strangers rewrite your mission statement. Every adjustment you make for random approval dilutes your message. Every compromise for comfort weakens your impact. Every surrender to noise lowers your standard. Over time, you don't even notice the drift. You're still working hard, but not toward your goal. You're working toward being liked. That's why most people fail quietly, not from lack of talent, but from lack of filters. They drown in irrelevant input until their original signal disappears. Don't let that happen. Guard your attention like it's sacred, because it is. Your attention decides your direction, and direction decides your destiny. That's the hierarchy of control. Lose your filter, lose your focus. Lose your focus, lose your freedom. Transition. Now you know who earns the right to influence you. The rest are spectators, loud, opinionated, irrelevant. You've taken the first step toward mental freedom by filtering the noise. But there's another layer. It's not just about who you listen to, it's about what you listen to inside yourself. Your biggest prison isn't external judgment. It's the internal voice that echoes it, the critic that lives in your own head. Chapter 4. Build your internal reference point. You've spent most of your life measuring yourself with someone else's ruler. Their opinions, their approval, their definition of success. And that's why you're exhausted. Because when your worth depends on external validation, you're permanently unstable. You rise when they clap. You fall when they don't. That's not confidence. That's dependency. You have a choice. Keep living like a puppet pulled by every reaction. Or build your own reference point, an internal compass that doesn't shake with the weather of opinions. That's the key. Without an internal reference point, you'll keep losing yourself in the noise. External reference, the default prison. Most people live externally referenced. They ask, what do they think, before what do I think? They feel good only when someone else approves. They feel bad when no one notices. It's the oldest addiction on earth, the need to be seen. You crave applause more than progress. You seek validation more than victory. That's the sickness of external reference. You hand out your self-worth like business cards. You wait for feedback before you believe in yourself. That's why you can't stay consistent. Because external reference always shifts. One moment they love you, the next they don't. And your self-belief moves with their mood. You can't build anything solid on unstable ground. That's why your foundation must move inside. Internal reference, the new operating system. Internal reference means this. You decide your own worth. You define your own success. You validate your own choices. It's not arrogance. It's sovereignty. When you're internally referenced, praise doesn't inflate you and criticism doesn't deflate you. You remain centered, grounded, unmoved. You know who you are because you've collected evidence. Not from words, from actions. That's the key. Confidence built on compliments collapses. Confidence built on evidence compounds. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build internal reference. Every time you act on your values instead of pressure, you build internal reference. Every time you achieve something privately and don't need a post about it, you build internal reference. It's slow, it's quiet, but it's unbreakable. The science behind it. Your brain is designed to seek certainty. When it doesn't find it internally, it hunts for it externally. That's why you crave validation. It's a shortcut to certainty. Someone praises you, your brain relaxes. Someone criticizes you, your brain panics. But when you build internal certainty through repeated self-evidence, you break the loop. You rewire your nervous system to seek validation from reality, not approval. That's how you stabilize your emotions. Not through affirmation, but through repetition of proof. You don't tell yourself you're disciplined. You show it. You don't tell yourself you're confident. You demonstrate it. You don't tell yourself you're enough. You act like it until your brain stops questioning it. That's the work. Proof over praise. Evidence over ego. How to build it. The daily protocol. Here's the system. 3 steps. Simple, not easy. Step 1. Keep small promises. Every time you say, I'll do it, do it. No matter how small. Wake up when you said you would. Finish what you start. Follow through even when no one's watching. This builds internal trust. And trust is the foundation of confidence. Step 2. Record the evidence. Every night, write down 3 things you did that align with your values or goals. They don't need to be big. They need to be real. That's how you train your brain to see proof of your capability. You stop asking for validation because you've already seen the receipts. Step 3. Audit your alignment. Ask yourself daily, did I act according to my standards or someone else's? If the answer is someone else's, identify where you handed away control. Then reclaim it tomorrow. That's the loop. Action. Evidence. Alignment. Repeat until your sense of worth stops, depending on applause. The temptation to return to external validation. You want to go back. You'll want to post the progress, to tell the story, to collect reactions. That's the old programming calling. The addiction to attention doesn't die quietly. It screams. It tells you, no one cares if they don't see it. It tells you, you'll disappear if you don't remind them. But here's the truth. You don't need to be seen to be valuable. You don't need to be loud to be strong. You don't need to prove to others what you've already proven to yourself. That's the key. Silence is not invisibility. It's control. Every time you do something great and say nothing, you strengthen the internal muscle. Every time you stay focused while others seek attention, you separate from the herd. Every time you measure your worth by your own metrics, you multiply your power. This is how you become unstoppable when your validation loop is fully internal. The evidence identity shift. Identity isn't built by affirmations. It's built by accumulation. You don't become disciplined by saying it. You become disciplined by collecting proof until your brain stops arguing. That's what identity really is. A story backed by evidence. You can't fake that. You can't buy it. You can't post your way into it. Every decision, every discipline, every standard kept, these are bricks. Stack enough bricks, and you've built identity. An identity no one could take because no one gave it to you. That's internal reference. Self-built, self-sustained, self-defined, and it changes everything. The dangers of borrowed reference. Borrowed reference kills independence. When you define yourself through others' lenses, you lose ownership of a narrative. One day, someone praises your progress, you feel alive. The next day, someone ignores it, you feel worthless. That's emotional slavery disguised as connection. The goal is not to cut people off. The goal is to stop outsourcing your self-esteem. When you no longer need validation, relationships become cleaner. You can love without attachment. You can connect without performing. You can lead without needing approval. That's freedom. That's power. You don't need to prove your worth when you've already earned it privately. The self-sourced life. Living internally referenced doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. You still listen, but you decide. You still care, but you're not controlled. You still receive feedback, but you filter it through your own compass. Your energy stops leaking. Your decisions stop wobbling. Your purpose stops depending on applause. You become stable. And stability is power in motion. That's what the world feels as confidence, not arrogance, not loudness. Stability. The person who knows who they are needs nothing from anyone and moves forward anyway. That's a person who can't be manipulated. That's internal reference made visible. Transition. You've built your internal compass. You've learned to measure yourself by your own proof, not their opinions. You've begun the process of mental sovereignty. But there's a force designed to destroy that progress. A modern machine engineered to keep you externally referenced. It hijacks your brain chemistry. It rewards approval addiction. It sells your attention for profit. It's called social media. And if you don't master it, it will master you. Chapter 5. The social media trap destroys internal reference. You can't build internal freedom while feeding from an external machine. That's what social media is, an industrial factory for external validation. It doesn't sell products. It sells attention. Yours. You think you're using it, but it's using you. Every scroll, every click, every post, training you to perform for approval instead of act for purpose. That's the key. It's not about deleting social media. It's about understanding how it rewires your brain and reclaiming control before it finishes the job. The business model of your attention. Here's the truth. You are not the customer. You're the product. Every platform runs on one metric, time spent. The longer you stay, the more ads they sell. And the fastest way to keep you there is to trigger emotion. Outrage, envy, approval. The algorithm doesn't care about truth or growth. It cares about chemical reaction. Each like is dopamine. Each comment is cortisol. Each view is another round of the slot machine. They've turned your biology into their profit model, and you volunteered for it. You post, they pay you in validation. You scroll, they feed you comparison. You react, they record the data. Every move builds their empire and erodes your autonomy. That's not conspiracy. That's design. How the trap works. The trap is simple. You trade authenticity for attention. You stop doing what's meaningful and start doing what performs. You begin optimizing your life for optics. You plan content before experiences. You document instead of live. You create moments for the feed instead of for your future. You think you're expressing yourself. You're actually rehearsing yourself. You're playing a character that gets likes, even if it's not who you are. That's the subtle death of authenticity. Not one big lie, but 1,000 small compromises for approval. And here's the brutal part. The more approval you get, the more addicted you become. The cycle strengthens. You start checking metrics instead of meaning. You care more about reach than reality. That's not connection. That's dependency disguised as influence. The chemical addiction. Let's talk biology. Every notification is a hit of dopamine. Every post that performs releases serotonin. Every comment triggers cortisol. You become chemically dependent on feedback loops you don't control. When engagement spikes, you feel powerful. When it drops, you feel invisible. Your emotional state rises and falls on numbers that don't exist in the real world. That's digital slavery. You're working for an algorithm that never pays you in peace. You have a choice. Keep feeding the loop and losing yourself. Or break the loop and rebuild control. That's the key. Control your input, or your input will control you. The illusion of connection. Social media promises connection, but delivers comparison. You see curated versions of other people's lives. Filtered victories, edited success, manufactured happiness. and your brain compares all of that to your unfiltered reality. You always lose that comparison. That's the design. When you feel inferior, you engage more. When you engage more, you feed the system. When you feed the system, it shows you more of what hurts you. It's not random. It's reinforcement. The algorithm studies you better than you study yourself. It knows which image keeps you scrolling. It knows which phrase triggers your insecurity. It knows which face, tone, and sound hold your attention longest. That's not entertainment. That's behavioral conditioning. You think you have free will. You have predictive programming. The identity hijack. Every platform pushes you toward performance identity. The digital version of you that gets engagement. Maybe it's the smart version. Maybe it's the funny version. Maybe it's the perfect version. It doesn't matter. It's still a mask. And once the mask starts getting rewards, you begin protecting it. You stop showing weakness. You stop showing growth. You stop showing truth. Because the mask performs better. But every performance deepens the divide between who you are and who you appear to be. Eventually, the applause becomes armor. You hide behind it. You stop risking authenticity because you fear losing attention. That's how the machine wins. By convincing you that visibility is value and applause is identity. It's not. Visibility is exposure. Applause is noise. Neither equals worth. The detox protocol, breaking free, requires more than discipline. It requires design. You need a system that starves the addiction long enough for your brain to reset. Here's the protocol. Follow it for 30 to 90 days. Non-negotiable. Step 1. Cold withdrawal. Delete apps from your phone. Not limit them. Delete them. Access only from desktop, if absolutely necessary for work. Force friction between impulse and action. Step 2. Replace the reward. You can't remove dopamine. You have to redirect it. Replace scrolling with reading. Replace posting with producing. Replace likes with learning. Every time you feel the urge to check, use that energy to create something tangible in the real world. Step 3. Silence the audience. Stop performing. Stop sharing. Stop narrating your life online. Do something meaningful and tell no one. Let your actions exist without applause. That's how you rewire for internal reference. Step 4. Rebuild intentional use. After detox, return with strict boundaries. Set purpose before platform. Use social media as a tool, not a mirror. You post with intention, not impulse. You consume with awareness, not addiction. You measure by results, not reactions. That's how you win the digital war. Not by disappearing, by mastering your exposure. The mindset of detachment. You must learn to treat social media like fire. Useful when controlled, destructive when not. You decide when to log in, not emotion. You decide what to post, not insecurity. You decide when to leave, not boredom. You have a choice. Every notification is a choice. React or remain centered. Every post is a choice. Seek approval or share truth. Every scroll is a choice. Consume or create. That's the key. Detachment is discipline in disguise. When you can use the tool without being used by it, you've won. Rebuilding internal reference after the detox. During the detox, something powerful happens. Your thoughts get louder. Your opinions sharpen. Your focus returns. At first, it's uncomfortable. Silence always is. But then clarity emerges. You start doing things because they matter, not because they perform. You start finishing projects without broadcasting progress. You start acting from conviction instead of reaction. That's when you realize the truth. You were never addicted to social media. You were addicted to being seen. But you don't need to be seen to be significant. You don't need followers to lead. You don't need algorithms to matter. When you build from internal reference, your metrics change. Progress is measured by results, not reactions. Peace becomes proof. Discipline becomes validation. Impact becomes applause. That's real success, earned in silence, proven in reality. The return on control. Once you reclaim control, something strange happens. Your productivity doubles. Your focus sharpens. Your peace stabilizes. Why? Because your attention is no longer fragmented. You've stopped leaking mental energy into endless digital loops. You've brought it back under command. That's what internal reference truly means. Owning your attention, directing it with purpose, defending it with discipline. Attention is the currency of this era. Spend it with precision. Invest it in creation, not consumption. Protect it like it's life because it is. Transition. You've learned how social media hijacks your wiring. You've learned how to reclaim your focus, rebuild internal reference, and regain control. You've seen how silence builds power and how detachment restores discipline. But there's still one invisible enemy left. A question that runs through every decision you make. It's subtle, automatic, paralyzing. What will they think? That question has been the silent dictator of your life. And the next chapter destroys it completely. Chapter 6. The What Will They Think test. The most dangerous question in the world isn't, what if I fail? It's, what will they think? That question has killed more dreams than fear ever did. It's silent. It's subtle. And it runs your life without permission. You think you're making choices. You're not. You're performing calculations, how to look good, how to avoid judgment, how to keep approval. You've built a life optimized for optics instead of authenticity. That's the key. Every time you ask, what will they think? You hand your power to people who aren't living your consequences. You have a choice. Keep running their program. Or write your own code. The invisible filter. You don't even notice when it happens anymore. You're about to speak, but pause. What will they think? You're about to post, but hesitate. What will they think? You're about to make a decision that feels right, but you stop. What will they think? That question sits between your impulse and your action like a gatekeeper. It edits your voice before you even use it. It replaces authenticity with approval. And it makes you a professional pretender. You call it being polite, being appropriate, being smart. But what it really is, fear dressed as strategy. You've mistaken approval for safety. And that's why you feel trapped. Why it controls you. The need for approval is ancient. In tribal times, being rejected meant death. Your survival depended on belonging. Your brain evolved to avoid social rejection the same way it avoids physical pain. So when you feel judged, your body reacts as if you're in danger. Heart rate rises. Cortisol floods. Rational thought shuts down. That's the biology. It's not weakness. It's wiring. But here's the difference. In the modern world, rejection doesn't kill you. It just exposes you. And exposure is uncomfortable, not fatal. That's what you must retrain your brain to understand. The discomfort of judgment isn't death. It's data. Every time you feel that anxiety, what will they think? You're not being attacked. You're being tested. Tested on whether you'll choose truth over performance. The test. Here's how it works. Before every decision, ask yourself a question. Am I doing this because I genuinely want to, or because of what they'll think? Be honest. Brutally honest. If the honest answer involves others' opinions, I'll look successful. They'll be impressed. They'll approve. Stop. You're not making a decision. You're making a performance. The what will they think test exposes the real reason behind your actions. It cuts through your excuses. It shows you whether you're driven by purpose or perception. That's the key. You can't live freely while hiding behind approval. The daily challenge. Start small. One decision a day that ignores what they'll think. Order the food you actually want, not what looks impressive. Wear the outfit you like, not what's trending. Say the truth, even when silence feels safer. Post what matters to you, not what gets likes. Set the boundary that protects your peace, not your image. Every act of defiance strengthens the muscle of authenticity. Every time you choose truth over approval, you take back control. Do it daily, one honest action at a time. In 90 days, you'll start to feel a shift, less hesitation, less noise, more clarity. That's freedom, built in small, invisible acts of courage. The psychology of discomfort. When you start passing the test, discomfort will hit hard. That's withdrawal from the addiction to approval. You'll feel guilt for saying no. You'll feel exposed for being real. You'll feel lonely when others pull away. That's not failure. That's progress. You're detoxing from the need to be liked. And detox always hurts before it heals. You have to sit through the discomfort without fixing it. You have to stop chasing relief and start building resilience. That's the discipline. Resisting the urge to explain, justify, or defend. When someone disapproves, let them. When someone misunderstands, let them. When someone gossips, let them. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your alignment is. That's the key. Peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being congruent. The metrics that matter. You've been measuring your success by the wrong scoreboard. Likes, comments, praise, all fake currency. They don't feed you. They feed the system. The real metrics are internal. Did I act according to my values? Did I do the right thing when it was hard? Did I keep my word to myself? That's your new scoreboard, and only you can see it. The irony is when you stop caring what they think, your work actually improves. Because performance for approval creates fear. Performance for purpose creates excellence. When you stop playing for the audience, you start playing to your potential. That's the shift. That's what the test builds. Focus without fear. The cost of failing the test. Every time you choose approval over authenticity, you pay a hidden tax. You lose self-trust. You lose energy. You lose identity. Because deep down, you know you lied. You said yes when you wanted no. You agreed when you disagreed. You smiled when you wanted silence. That's how people burn out. Not for doing too much, but from pretending too long. You can't build peace while betraying yourself. You can't build confidence while living for permission. That's why you feel empty even when they approve. Because approval doesn't fill the space where authenticity should be. That's the price of failing the test, the reward of passing it. But when you pass it, everything changes. You start saying what you mean. You start doing what you believe. You stop negotiating your identity. People notice. Some will respect it. Some will resent it. That's not your problem. You'll lose fake relationships and gain real ones. You'll stop attracting those who need your mask and start meeting those who love your truth. And your energy will change. Because nothing drains you faster than pretending. And nothing empowers you more than congruence. That's freedom. Not doing whatever you want. Doing what's right for you without needing permission. The advanced level. Eventually, you'll stop asking the question entirely. What will they think? Disappears. Because your focus has shifted from impression to impact. You'll realize that people always think something, and it changes nothing. They think when you act. They think when you don't. They think when you win. They think when you fail. You can't escape their opinions, but you can make them irrelevant. That's mastery, not avoiding judgment, outgrowing it. The freedom audit. Do this tonight. List 3 decisions you delayed this month because of what they'll think. Write them down. Then write what you actually wanted to do. Now ask yourself, who were you afraid of? What would really happen if they disapproved? Would you lose your life or just their comfort? You'll realize the danger was imaginary. The prison was mental, and the key was always in your hand. That's the power of awareness. You can't fight a chain you don't see. Transition. You've learned to see the invisible filter that shapes your life. You've learned to pass the "what will they think" test by choosing authenticity over approval. You've learned that freedom begins when you stop negotiating with fear. But freedom from judgment isn't enough. There's another skill, one that turns criticism into strength, not threat. Because once you stop caring what they think, you'll start hearing what they say. And not all of it deserves your attention. Chapter 7. Criticism is information, not truth. Criticism is inevitable. Mastery is optional. Most people collapse when they're criticized. A few get angry. The rare ones get stronger. The difference? Interpretation. Weak minds treat criticism as truth. Strong minds treat criticism as data. And that's the key. You can't control opinions. You can control what you do with them. The problem with criticism. Criticism feels personal because it lands where your ego lives. It attacks your self-image, not your skill. That's why it hurts. But here's the truth. Criticism says more about the critic than the target. Every comment is filtered through someone's experiences, fears, and insecurities. Their judgment reflects their perspective, not your potential. When you internalize it, you let their limitations rewrite your reality. You hand them authorship of your story. That's weakness disguised as humility. You have a choice. You can absorb every opinion and drown in noise. Or you can evaluate it like a scientist and decide what's useful. That's discipline, not emotion, not pride. Discipline. The 3 filters. Before you let any criticism touch your identity, run it through 3 filters. Filter 1, credibility. Ask, does this person have authority in the domain they're criticizing? If they don't, dismiss it immediately. A random spectator has no right to judge your performance. A proven performer does. You wouldn't take medical advice from a carpenter. Don't take business advice from the unemployed. Evaluate the source before the statement. Filter 2, specificity. Vague attacks are worthless. Your work is bad, useless. Your communication lacks clarity in the second section. Actionable. Specific feedback points to a lever you can pull. Vague criticism only points to insecurity in the critic. Filter 3, alignment with evidence. Compare their claim to your measurable results. If criticism contradicts consistent data, it's projection. If it aligns with observable reality, it deserves attention. That's the framework. Credibility, specificity, evidence. Everything else is noise, turning criticism into fuel. You can't silence critics. You can only starve their power. The way to do that is simple. Convert every critique into information. When someone says, "You're not ready," translate it into data. Which skill gap are they noticing? When someone says, "You changed," interpret as proof. Growth detected. When someone mocks your ambition, record the pattern. Average minds resist elevation. The critic's tone is irrelevant. The information is optional. The decision is yours. That's the key. Don't fight feedback. Filter it. Extract what's useful. Discard what's emotional. The ego trap. Your ego wants to be right. It defends, argues, and rationalizes. But every time you defend, you block learning. Silence the ego. Listen for the signal inside the insult. When someone says, "You're too aggressive," maybe it means your communication lacks calibration. When someone says, "You think you're better than everyone," maybe it means your delivery lacks humility. Don't react. Analyze. Ego makes you blind to feedback that could make you unstoppable. Detach your identity from your improvement. You're not your performance. You're the operator refining it. That's maturity. Caring about results more than reputation. Criticism versus judgment. Not all negative input is criticism. Most of it is judgment. Judgment attacks the person. Criticism addresses the process. You're lazy is judgment. Your preparation time is inconsistent is criticism. Learn to hear the difference. One deserves emotional detachment. The other deserves operational correction. When you confuse judgment for truth, you internalize poison. When you identify real criticism, you find gold. That's awareness. That's power. The 24-hour rule. Never react to criticism immediately. Emotion distorts accuracy. When feedback lands, write it down. Walk away for 24 hours. Let chemicals settle. Then revisit it like an analyst, not a defendant. Ask, is this true? Is it useful? Is it aligned with my mission? If yes, apply it. If no, delete it. That one-day delay prevents months of emotional chaos. It keeps you strategic when others stay reactive. You don't owe anyone a response. Silence is sometimes the most disciplined reply. Public criticism. The higher you rise, the louder they get. Criticism scales with visibility. If you want impact, expect opposition. If you can't handle judgment, stay invisible. The internet made everyone a critic with zero accountability. They don't risk. They don't build. They just comment. Don't confuse volume with validity. A crowd can be loud and still wrong. You don't need their permission to keep building. You just need focus strong enough to drown them out. That's the cost of leadership. If they're not criticizing, you're not creating. Building emotional armor. Emotional armor isn't indifference. It's selective sensitivity. You stay open to learning, but closed to nonsense. You absorb information, not insult. You analyze tone, but act on truth. The more you practice filtering feedback, the less it shakes you. Because your confidence is built on competence, not compliments. You're no longer defending ego. You're optimizing performance. That's mastery, not flinching at feedback, evaluating it with calm precision. The internal debrief. Here's the nightly habit. Before sleep, recall the harshest thing someone said that day. Ask 3 questions. Is this coming from someone credible? Is it specific enough to act on? Does it align with my own data? If yes, plan an improvement. If no, mentally delete it. This ritual rewires your nervous system. You stop fearing feedback. You start craving refinement. The critic becomes your unpaid consultant. Their words feed your evolution instead of your insecurity. That's how warriors think. That's how leaders grow. When to ignore completely. Some feedback deserves total silence. Here's the list. Criticism about your personality from people who don't know you. Criticism about your mission from people without one. Criticism about your pace from people standing still. Criticism about your style from people without results. You owe them nothing. Not defense. Not explanation. Not emotion. They haven't earned access to your adjustment. Reserve your attention for those who've earned credibility through execution. That's selective engagement, the weapon of the focused. From reaction to command. When criticism hits, most people feel attacked. You'll feel activated. They retreat. You recalibrate. That's command. Every insult is potential insight. Every attack is potential feedback. Every projection is a mirror showing where others are stuck. You decide what to do with it. You're the filter. You're the gatekeeper. That's what separates amateurs from professionals. Amateurs react. Professionals evaluate. Masters transform. You're moving toward mastery. The final shift. The goal isn't to feel nothing when criticized. The goal is to feel everything and still decide logically. You'll still get triggered. That's human. But your reaction window shortens. Your analysis window expands. Soon, criticism stops being personal altogether. It becomes mechanical. Input, evaluation, adjustment, execution. You've turned judgment into a feedback system. That's mental evolution. Transition. You've learned how to treat criticism as information, not identity. You've built filters, armor, and frameworks. You've stopped reacting and started commanding. But there's one more layer of control. A skill that separates emotional stability from emotional dominance. It's the art of selective focus. The power to care only when it counts and conserve energy when it doesn't. Chapter 8. Cultivate strategic indifference. Caring about everything is emotional poverty. Caring about nothing is emotional numbness. The goal is neither. The goal is strategic indifference. Strategic indifference means this. You decide what deserves your energy and what doesn't. You respond when it matters. You ignore when it doesn't. You stop donating attention to everything that moves. That's control. That's command. That's freedom. The problem with caring too much. You've been conditioned to care. About opinions. About trends. About gossip. About approval. Every notification demands emotion. Every disagreement demands explanation. Every judgment demands defense. And every one of those reactions drains your focus. The truth is, most of what you care about doesn't move the needle of your life. It just moves your emotions. You can't win a war if you're exhausted by irrelevant battles. You can't build greatness while defending every opinion. That's the key. You're not overwhelmed because life is hard. You're overwhelmed because you care about too much that doesn't matter. What strategic indifference is and isn't. Strategic indifference isn't apathy. It's not emotional detachment or laziness. It's efficiency. You're not indifferent to everything. You're indifferent to everything irrelevant. You still care deeply about your mission, your values, your growth, your people. You simply stop leaking energy on noise. It's the difference between a sniper and a soldier spraying bullets in every direction. One wastes ammunition. The other wins wars. That's strategic indifference, emotional marksmanship, the emotional economy. Your attention is currency. Every reaction is a transaction. When you care about gossip, you pay with focus. When you argue with fools, you pay with peace. When you defend every choice, you pay with time. The average person spends their emotional budget on nonsense. You'll invest yours with precision. Ask this before every response. Is this worth my energy? If the answer is no, silence is the response. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to explain your path to people not walking it. You don't need to justify your peace to people addicted to chaos. That's the discipline. Save your energy for execution. Training indifference. Indifference is trained, not inherited. Start small. When someone cuts you off in traffic, no reaction. When someone misinterprets your words, no explanation. When someone criticizes your choices, no defense. You feel the emotion rise. You notice it. You let pass. You stay calm. That's the repetition that builds control. Every time you refuse to react, you strengthen the muscle of restraint. Every time you choose silence over defense, you reinforce internal power. It's not about suppression. It's about redirection. You don't kill emotion, you command it. That's what makes indifference powerful. It's not coldness. It's control. The 3-second rule of indifference. Here's the protocol. When something provokes you, wait 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, ask, does this affect my goals? Does this threaten my mission? Does this deserve energy? If the answer is no, disengage immediately. Move your attention. End the loop. Because attention is oxygen. Without it, nonsense dies. That's the secret, starve irrelevance of oxygen. Don't argue. Don't explain. Don't correct. Just withdraw attention. The highest form of control isn't domination. It's detachment. The law of equal exchange. You should only care in proportion to control. If you can't control it, don't carry it. Weather, opinions, outcomes, all outside your control, all undeserving of emotional investment. Focus only on what's inside your circle of influence. Your actions, your habits, your responses, your effort. That's where your power lives. Caring about uncontrollables is emotional gambling. You lose every time. When you stop betting on what you can influence, peace becomes your default. That's strategic indifference at work. Your focus is sovereign again. Emotional efficiency in action. Let's make it practical. Example 1. A coworker undermines you publicly. Old response, defend. Argue. Prove your worth. New response, note the behavior. Adjust your strategy. No emotional display. Example 2. Someone online mocks your work. Old response, engage. Explain. React. New response, observe the criticism. Apply your filters, move on. Example 3. A friend disapproves of your lifestyle. Old response, debate your decisions. New response, acknowledge. Continue your path. No validation required. That's mastery. Your calm becomes the loudest statement in the room. You win not by arguing, but by refusing to compete in meaningless games. The power of emotional conservation. Imagine every morning you wake up with 100 emotional units. Every argument, every worry, every distraction costs you 10. By noon, you're bankrupt. That's how most people live. Emotionally broke by lunchtime. But the disciplined conserve their emotional capital. They spend it on creation, not reaction. On purpose, not noise. On forward motion, not friction. That's how you stay powerful, by protecting your internal resources. Indifference is not withdrawal from life. It's withdrawal from waste. How to know when to care. There's one question that decides everything. Does this matter 1 year from now? If not, it doesn't deserve your energy today. Most emotional storms last hours. Most consequences of emotional reactions last months. The disciplined think long-term. They protect the future by mastering the moment. That's what strategic indifference does. It zooms out your vision. When you think long, you stop reacting short. The fear of being misunderstood. This is where most people fail. They confuse indifference with arrogance. They fear being misunderstood. So they over-explain, over-justify, over-prove. Here's the truth. You will be misunderstood. You will be misjudged. You will be criticized. Let them. Your goal is not to be understood by everyone. Your goal is to understand yourself so deeply that misunderstanding doesn't move you. That's sovereignty. That's unshakable peace. You don't need them to get it. You just need to keep going. The audit. Tonight, perform an energy audit. List everything that stole your focus today. Arguments, judgments, opinions, distractions. Ask yourself, did this deserve my energy? If not, mark it as waste. Then set a rule, no more energy on waste. You'll notice your peace expanding and your focus sharpening within a week. Why? Because your attention is finite, and you've finally started managing it like a professional. That's the turning point when you start treating your energy like an investment, not a reaction. The result, calm power. The result of strategic indifference isn't coldness, it's calm power. You stop reacting to everything. You start responding to what matters. You become unbothered by noise, unmoved by opinion, unshaken by judgment. You walk into chaos and remain composed. You speak less, but mean more. You feel deeply, but act deliberately. That's control. That's mastery. That's what power looks like when emotion serves discipline. Transition. You've learned how to master your emotional economy. You've learned to filter noise, conserve energy, and detach from distraction. You've built a calm center that can't be shaken by chaos. But there's a next level, one beyond indifference. Because indifference protects your mind, but authenticity liberates your soul. Chapter 9. The freedom of living your truth. You can't live free while lying to yourself. You can't live strong while performing for others. You can't live peaceful while pretending to be someone you're not. Freedom begins when performance ends. That's the truth most people never face. They think freedom means doing whatever they want. It doesn't. It means aligning who you are with how you live. Living your truth isn't rebellion. It's integrity. The prison of performance. You've spent years performing. For family. For friends. For strangers online. Every version of you crafted to fit an audience. You say what's acceptable. You hide what's real. You chase what's praised. You've mastered adaptation, but forgotten authenticity. That's the trap. You've mistaken approval for belonging. You've mistaken applause for connection. You've mistaken attention for love. The cost? Your identity. You wake up one day and realize you don't know who you are without the performance. That's the moment most people break. Or wake up. You decide which. The definition of truth. Living your truth doesn't mean doing whatever feels good. It means doing what's real. It's not about emotion. It's about alignment. Your truth is the intersection of values, purpose, and behavior. What you believe, what you want, and how you act. When those three align, peace follows automatically. When they don't, you live in constant internal friction. Saying one thing, doing another, feeling one thing, showing another. That's not living. That's acting. And acting is exhausting. You're not tired of work. You're tired of pretending. The cost of pretending. Pretending is expensive. Every lie costs energy. Every performance costs peace. Every compromise costs integrity. You think you're avoiding conflict by pretending. You're not. You're just relocating the conflict inside yourself. You become divided. The outer self they approve of. The inner self you abandon. And divided people can't feel whole. That's why anxiety rises. That's why peace disappears. That's why nothing ever feels enough. Because no amount of approval can fix internal betrayal. You can't build confidence while living a lie. You can't build peace while performing for permission. That's the cost of dishonesty. And most people pay it daily. The audit of authenticity. Here's the test. Ask yourself 3 questions. What am I saying that I don't mean? What am I doing that I don't want? What am I tolerating that violates my values? Your answers reveal your chains. Where you're lying, you're losing. Where you're conforming, you're decaying. Where you're tolerating, you're betraying. Freedom begins with brutal honesty. Because you can't change what you won't admit. That's the first discipline of authenticity, truth over comfort. You can lie to others and survive. Lie to yourself and you rot. The courage to be misunderstood. When you start living your truth, people will notice. And not everyone will like it. You'll lose relationships that were built on your performance. You'll lose approval from people invested in your compliance. You'll lose opportunities that were never meant for your real self. That's not loss. That's alignment. You're not losing anything real. You're losing illusions. You'll be misunderstood. That's the price of clarity. You'll be judged. That's the tax on authenticity. But you'll also be respected by the right people, admired by the real ones. At peace with yourself, you have to choose acceptance or alignment. You can't have both. That's the test of truth. Living by values, not validation. Living your truth requires values, principles you refuse to betray. Most people have preferences, not principles. They say they value honesty until it costs them approval. They say they value freedom until it costs them comfort. Values are proven by sacrifice. If you won't pay for it, it's not a value. So define yours. What are your non-negotiables? What do you stand for even if it costs you status? Once you know that, decisions become simple. Not easy, simple. You don't need permission. You don't need consensus. You need clarity. When your choices reflect your values, you stop being pulled by opinions. You start being guided by principles. That's the structure of inner freedom. The discipline of expression. Living your truth means expressing it. Not loudly. Clearly. You say what you mean. You mean what you say. You don't decorate honesty to make it palatable. You communicate with calm strength. No aggression. No apology. If it's true, it stands. If it's false, it falls. That's integrity in motion. Every time you express the truth calmly, you reinforce self-trust. Every time you hide it to keep peace, you erode self-trust. People respect consistency more than compliance. You don't need to be liked. You need to be clear. That's how you build credibility, with yourself first. The real freedom, internal peace. The highest form of freedom isn't external independence. It's internal peace. You don't need to escape your job, your family, your city. You need to escape your own dishonesty. When your actions match your values, anxiety vanishes. When your words match your beliefs, confidence rises. When your habits match your goals, peace appears. You don't chase validation. You embody conviction. That's what real freedom feels like. Not rebellion. Resolution. You're no longer controlled by fear of judgment. You're guided by your own compass. The world stops being a courtroom. It becomes a canvas. That's the shift from performing to creating. The system of self-alignment. Here's the system. Step 1. Identify your values. Write 5 principles you refuse to betray. Discipline, honesty, loyalty, courage, freedom. Step 2. Audit your actions. For each value, list behaviors that align and behaviors that violate it. Step 3. Eliminate contradictions. Remove one misaligned behavior this week. Replace it with a matching one. Step 4. Track your integrity. At the end of each day, ask, did I live by my values today? No judgment, just awareness. Step 5. Repeat. Alignment compounds. Each day of integrity adds another brick to your internal fortress. That's how truth becomes lifestyle, not slogan. The resistance phase. The first months of living your truth will feel like loss. You'll lose people, habits, and comfort zones. But that's just identity shedding its dead skin. Your old life will fight to survive. It'll whisper, go back to safety. It'll tempt you with nostalgia, approval, familiarity. Ignore it. You're not becoming someone new. You're becoming someone honest. That's what growth feels like, death to who you're not. Keep walking. The discomfort is proof of transformation. The reward. That happens. Clarity replaces confusion. Peace replaces anxiety. Power replaces fear. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending yourself. You stop doubting yourself. Because you're finally aligned with yourself. No audience. No performance. No mask. You wake up and you recognize the person in the mirror. Not the version they created. The one you built. That's liberation. That's mental sovereignty. You can't buy it. You can't fake it. You can only earn it through truth. The challenge. Tonight, ask yourself one question. If no one ever found out, what would I still do? That answer is your truth. That's who you are when the world isn't watching. Live from that place. Speak from that place. Decide from that place. Because the world doesn't need more approval seekers. It needs more honest operators. You don't need their permission to live your truth. You just need your own commitment. Transition. You've learned to stop performing and start living. You've learned to trade validation for values. You've learned that freedom isn't found. It's built through alignment. But there's one final stage. Freedom is powerful. Sovereignty is stronger. Living your truth gives you peace. Sovereignty makes that peace permanent. Chapter 10. From Freedom to Sovereignty. Freedom is the first victory. Sovereignty is the final one. Freedom means you've broken the chains of others' opinions. Sovereignty means you've built a kingdom within yourself that nothing external can invade. Freedom is escape. Sovereignty is establishment. Freedom happens once. Sovereignty happens every day. The difference between the two. Freedom is reactive. You remove what controlled you. Sovereignty is proactive. You command what replaces it. Freedom says, I'm not controlled. Sovereignty says, I control. Freedom breaks walls. Sovereignty builds structure. Freedom removes masters. Sovereignty installs discipline. That's the key. Most people stop at freedom and relapse into chaos. They break free but never build order. They leave the prison and never learn to govern themselves. That's why their peace doesn't last. They confuse liberation with leadership. Freedom gives you choice. Sovereignty teaches you how to use it. The architecture of an inner kingdom. To become sovereign, You build systems inside yourself the same way a nation builds government. Every great nation has three things: laws, leadership, and defense. So must you. Law 1. Principles over preferences. Your rules don't change with your moods. You act from principle even when it's inconvenient. That's self-law. That's order. Law 2. Purpose over pleasure. Every decision is filtered through mission, not impulse. If it serves the mission, it stays. If it doesn't, it's exiled. Law 3. Accountability over excuses. Sovereignty collapses without consequence. You keep score on yourself. You track your word. You correct without self-pity. That's governance. That's maturity. Now, defense. Your defense is mental discipline. No thought, opinion, or fear enters without inspection. Everything passes through the gates of logic and purpose. Leadership, that's awareness. You watch your mind, not obey it. You give orders to your emotions instead of taking them. That's internal government. That's sovereignty. The collapse of the undisciplined. Freedom without structure becomes self-destruction. Look around. People break rules and call it liberation. They reject authority, but never replace it with mastery. They trade one cage for another. They're not free, they're lost. Without internal order, freedom dissolves into impulse. Impulse leads to chaos. Chaos leads to weakness. That's the natural law of every empire and every human being. Without discipline, collapse is inevitable. Sovereignty is the antidote. It's freedom protected by order. The chain of command. You are both the ruler and the soldier of your life. The ruler sets direction. The soldier executes without complaint. Freedom lets the soldier do whatever he feels like. Sovereignty trains him to obey the ruler's command. When you wake up tired, the ruler decides. When fear whispers, wait, the ruler commands, move. When ego screams, prove them wrong, the ruler says, stay on mission. That's command hierarchy. That's how disciplined people operate. You don't negotiate with emotion. You give orders. You follow them. The discipline of stability. Sovereignty is emotional equilibrium. You stop oscillating between extremes. No more highs of validation, lows of criticism. No more chaos disguised as passion. You operate from calm consistency. That doesn't mean lifelessness. It means control. It means your energy is directed, not diffused. People who live at emotional extremes burn out. People who live in centered discipline build empires quietly. That's what sovereign energy feels like. Steady, silent power. Not noise. Not display. Command. Detachment from outcome. Sovereignty also means detachment from results. You control input, not outcome. You command effort, not applause. When you attach your peace to results, you hand the world your leash. When you attach your peace to discipline, you hold your own. You do the work because it's who you are, not because it guarantees reward. You act in alignment, regardless of result. That's internal independence, the highest currency of sovereignty. You can lose and remain composed. You can win and remain grounded. That's not indifference. That's mastery. The pillars of sovereign mindset. There are 5 pillars that maintain your sovereignty. Pillar 1, self-awareness. Know your patterns. Name your triggers. Predict your weaknesses. A sovereign can't be blindsided by himself. Pillar 2, self-discipline. Do what you said you'd do, especially when no one's watching. Rules followed, privately forge unshakable public strength. Pillar 3, self-respect. You no longer accept treatment beneath your standards. You teach people how to treat you by the boundaries you enforce. Pillar 4, self-trust. You believe your word because you've proven it to yourself. When you say, I'll do it, it happens. That's unbreakable confidence. Pillar 5, self-governance. You manage emotion, attention, and reaction like limited resources. Nothing enters your mental kingdom without your consent. Maintain these 5, and nothing external can dethrone you. The sovereign relationship with the world. When you become sovereign, the world changes. Not because it actually changes, because you do. You stop chasing validation. You start projecting certainty. People sense it. They test you less. They trust you more. Why? Because power communicates silently. You no longer need to prove yourself. Your discipline speaks for you. You stop seeking opportunity. you attract it, because the world bends to those who bend themselves first. That's the paradox of sovereignty. The less you chase control, the more control you gain. The daily practice. Sovereignty isn't a title. It's a practice. Here's how to maintain it. Morning command. Before touching your phone, issue 3 orders to yourself. Clear, specific, actionable. Then execute without negotiation. Midday audit. Pause once daily to ask, who's leading right now, my emotion or my discipline? If it's emotion, reset. Evening court. Review the day. Reward what was aligned. Correct what wasn't. No self-hate. No excuses. That's how you govern yourself daily. 3 rituals. 30 minutes total. Infinite control returned. The paradox of power. The more control you build, the less you need to use it. Because power unprovoked is power proven. A sovereign doesn't flex authority to feel powerful. He radiates calm because authority is unquestioned. The insecure shout. The sovereign commands silently. The insecure need approval to confirm identity. The sovereign acts from identity that requires no confirmation. That's the endgame. When your peace no longer depends on anything external, you've won. The battle never fully ends. You'll never be completely free of the lower self. It still whispers. It still tempts. It still tests. But sovereignty means you win by default. The discipline is so ingrained that rebellion dies on arrival. Old habits might knock, but they don't get in. Old fears might rise, but they don't rule. You've built a fortress too strong to fall to old weaknesses. And that's what separates liberation from rule. Freedom opens the gate. Sovereignty guards it. The final challenge. Today, stop asking, how do I stay free? Start asking, how do I stay sovereign? Freedom is external removal of chains. Sovereignty is internal refusal to wear them again. Every thought, every choice, every reaction is either law or rebellion. Choose law. Choose command. Choose order. You don't need motivation. You need maintenance. Daily governance of your mind. Freedom is the spark. Sovereignty is the flame that never dies. Closing transition. You fought the war of external validation and won. You've built internal peace through truth and alignment. Now you understand the final discipline, command of self so complete that no external force can alter your state. That's sovereignty, not perfection. Control. You lead your mind instead of serving it. You govern emotion instead of obeying it. You shape reality instead of reacting to it. Freedom made you independent. Sovereignty makes you untouchable. That's the destination. That's the standard. That's your new identity. You're not seeking control anymore. You are control. The war is over. The warrior remains. So here's what you know now. You're stuck in other people's opinions. Every decision is filtered through what will they think of me. Every action is planned for approval. Every authentic part of yourself is hidden to avoid judgment. But you also know how to get out of this situation. You know that your quest for approval is an evolutionary trait, not a character flaw. You know that 99% of opinions are completely irrelevant and that only 3 types of thoughts matter. You know that you must build an internal reference point through evidence that you create, not through the validation you receive. You know that social media is designed to keep you externally referenced and enslaved. You know that you must analyze every decision with the question, am I doing this for myself or for the approval of others? You know that criticism is information to be evaluated, not a truth to be accepted. You know that you must practice strategic indifference, not caring about everything, but choosing what deserves your attention and emotional energy. You know that living your truth means authentic alignment, even when it disappoints others. And you know that sovereignty is possible when other people's opinions become background noise with no power over you. So here's your challenge. Right now, today, make one decision without considering what others will think. 1. Say what you really think. Go after what you really want. Set the boundaries you really need. Do this once today, then again tomorrow, and the day after that. In 90 days, you'll realize that you've been living your real life instead of performing for an imaginary audience. Stop caring about what others think. Start living your truth. Claim your freedom.